Hey y'all, today we're going to work on breaking down, servicing, and reassembling an Garcia 177. We'll start with the simplest parts first, I think, which would be the spool, and then work on the rotor and just the rest of the stuff here. We're going to remove the handle by unscrewing that lock nut right there, screwing it backwards to take it off. You have a collar inside there, and this just pulls straight out. Alright, so let's take this off. We're going to leave that right there for now because we're working that afterwards. That pulls up. And we have kind of a mess. I don't think it's, yeah, it's kind of bad actually. So to remove that clip or to get those drag washers out, we're going to pop this retaining spring here out by pushing in and up like so. And then let's see if we can get this stuff out of there. They're not that bad. They're bad enough. Okay, I'm going to pause the video, see if I have some replacements for this. That's what I'll be looking for. I'll be right back. Alright, so I don't have any of these drag washers, but what I do have are some Daiwa pre-greased drag washers. So I'm going to kind of eyeball this stuff and just cut some off of it to make it fit in there. So I'll do the first one. It's about right there. And these don't need to be perfect in terms of the roundness. However, you want to get them as round as you can. The main goal here is to get them to fit inside that receiver right there. And if this first one is good, then what we'll do is we'll use this as a template to cut the other ones. And if you notice as I'm cutting this, that hole on the inside is larger than the hole on the original 177 drag washers. That's somewhat irrelevant, so we don't need to worry too much about that. Let's see how that looks. Kinda good. Let's see if it fits. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get that to fit the most of the surface area there. So I'm going to continue the other two just by using this as a template. I'm going to clean all this stuff up first. What I'm going to use will be some Q-tips, and probably that's about it. But some Q-tips. I have a brush that I use a lot to wipe things out of here, and clearly paper towels as well. If I need to break anything down, I'll use something like Corrosion X to kind of spray in there to break down any grease or rust that might be inside there. Alright, so I'll see you guys in a sec after I do the other two and I'm cleaning the stuff up. Alright, now since these are pre-greased, we don't need to re-grease them. We're just going to drop this first one in. That'll be the drag washer. Then one of these keyed washers here, looks like that. Drop it down on top of that. Then we have our second drag washer that we manufactured. Take this aired washer, stick that in kind of like that. Has to fit into those two little slots that you see there. Then the final one, and that goes in like this. And then we take our clip, take one end, angle it down into the groove that it should be in, which is right there, and then just kind of work your finger around like that to get the rest of the pieces or sides into the channel. And when you're done with that, you want to make sure that you check to see that it's in the channel it should be in, which this one is. So we're good to go. Just clean off the back side here, and we're good to go. I'm going to make sure that that spring, sometimes what happens is, where's my reel? Sometimes when you pull on that ratchet kind of gets locked up into the spring here and lifts it up out of place. So I just kind of push that down gently to make sure it sits back in place. That's all. And we're done with that. Now for the handle, all I'm going to do is just kind of bend that over like that, clean it out a little bit with just a fine toothbrush or something, and a Q-tip. And I'm going to add some oil to this section right here. Some inside there. Just kind of work that in. That should work. Now I can add some grease inside here. I'll do it on this side first. And I'm using the Pen Blue Grease or Pen Real Grease, Precision Grease, all those names. And I don't know if I told you in the intro, this reel has an issue with the anti-reverse, so we'll be replacing that in all likelihood. Let me not say we are until I check it, but I'm guessing that it's going to be bad, like kind of like how the Daiwas go bad, like the BGs go bad because of water intrusion. I suspect the same will happen here. I'm going to add a little bit of grease inside here also, just because. And for this, there's not a whole lot that we do. It looks clean to me, so we're going to leave it alone. When we put this back in, I may end up greasing the end threads right here, so that doesn't get stuck inside here. What I will also do here though is grease the shaft to help it from seizing up inside that the main gear. Now let's get to the rotor. We're going to pull this stack off right here. Kind of wiggle it as you pull up. You have a washer on top. You may have one or two, who knows. Then a click gear that's underneath there. We're going to undo that screw right there so that we can lift this off. So undo that nut. I don't know if it's right or left, so we'll figure it out in a sec. Left. Lefty loosey to take it off. Those two pieces stay there, and you can just kind of wiggle as you pull up. And I'm seeing evidence of a lot of rust inside there, so I'm guessing this is going to be bad anyhow. All right, let's set this aside, make sure nothing came off. Yeah, we are good. All right, so the one piece we're going to leave on there is that little weight, that counterweight that's on the bottom. But we're going to do all these screws here. You see it works, but we have a bent bail, so we're going to replace this also. We're going to do these 3 screws, loosen this one up, and I'll show you everything under here and how to put that back in. All right, I'm going to do this screw here. Okay, I just saw a lot of salt just kind of fall out of there when I removed that screwdriver. It kind of just sat right there. I removed that paper towel so you can see what the setup of the line roller is. Oh yeah, nice and salty. There you go, salt. All right, let's pop this out. Ooh, nice. I think that's all we had under there. Yeah, that should be fine. I'm gonna clean that stuff up, obviously. So we have a washer. And yet again, this is just one more reason why you want to get these things oiled or greased to help protect against this sort of stuff here. I'm going to pause the camera and work on getting this off. I want to make sure that's just a bearing, or a bushing, not a bearing inside there before I remove it. So I'll be right back. Okay, so this is the layout of it. We have this washer. We also had another piece here that didn't know about. This is a metal bushing. Then we have a plastic bushing, the line roller, and another plastic bushing, and that's what completes the setup. You notice that the line roller has that wider gap, or that sloped up this direction facing towards the bail wire. Just remember that when you put it back on. All right, we can set that aside, and let's go ahead and finish up the rest of this stuff. I'm going to open up these 3 screws here. The first one I'm going to take off would be this the bail arm, and that's because I want to take the load off. Just keeps it a little safer that way. Kind of pop that up. Be careful, if that's on the load, it can spring up on you. So just keep your finger around there somewhere. I'm going to put this next to that, leave this there, and now I'm going to undo these 2 screws that are right here. And at some point that spring may pop up, so I'm keeping my finger there. I can feel it coming now. And now the tension is released off of it. These 2 screws are the same size. Pull this cap up. We have the spring. with that arm and that receiver right there. This receiver, you'll see that this notch part is facing down, and the reason that's facing down is because that hits onto this piece right here. There's a deeper end. It's slightly deeper, so the deeper end faces down into this part, so it'll look kind of like that. Hope that made sense to you guys. If it didn't, we'll show you when you put it back in. Now to remove this piece, which is the trip, undo this screw, pull this straight up, and it comes off with the spring. And that's it. So let's get this cleaned up. I'll come back to you guys and show you how to put it back together. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the line roller first. I'm going to take some grease, and for this stuff you can use oil if you wanted to. I much prefer grease, especially on bushings. That was a bit much, but it's still fine either way. Take our first bushing, stick that on there just like that. Take our line roller. Remember I said that thicker part will be facing this way. I'm going to add some grease inside here, and bushings rarely get frozen or locked into other pieces, especially if it's metal on bushing, but sometimes it does happen because of expansion of the rust. So we're going to still stick some stuff on there. Stick it on just like that. Our next bushing goes in there. Then we have this metal washer that we had trouble getting off the first time. And if you notice, this is a new bail wire that I'm working on. I'm going to stick that on there, just over it, just like that. Now if you notice there's two prongs on the end there. Those two prongs will correspond to the receiving holes right there in the bail arm. We're going to take this metal plate and stick this on first because it has a receiving groove for those two prongs as well. So to get that lined up properly, we're just going to stick it on like this, if we can find it, kind of like that. So that's essentially how it'll look. Now I'm going to take this, stick this on like this, and then just kind of rotate this until it drops in place, which it just did right there. Now I'm going to take this off because I want to do the line roller. I want to add some, line roller screw. I want to add some grease to the end of that. Just like so. Let's get this back. There it is right there. Hold it in place, and then just screw it in. Now when you get down to the bottom, you can always double check to make sure that it's still in the right spot, because it'll fall out on you. And if that happens, just rock it until it gets back to where it should be, and then just finish tightening it down. Now I'm not going to go all the way down yet, but I am going to go to where it does not come out of that groove that's right there. And while I'm here, I can go ahead and add some grease inside that hole right there, somewhere around that notched piece, and some over that hole where the end of the bail spring or that bail arm will sit. We can also do over here, same kind of deal. And that should suffice. Alright, now let's work on the bail spring and this trip lever. The first thing we're going to put on is the trip lever. And for this, I'm going to add some oil just around there. Just a little bit. And to set this up, we kind of do it away from the rotor. So I'll take this piece. You'll notice there's a little bump in the back here. That bump will be facing down, kind of looking like this. I'm going to set this up. I'm going to take this spring, that shorter notched end that you see right there will be facing over it, looking like that. Hope you guys can see that one. And don't worry too much about the holes not being centered. We're going to get that fixed in a sec. take this, start with the spring side first, have that drop over the post on the rotor, and then just kind of slip the this lever on. And we're not going to go all the way down yet because we have to work that end of the spring up to the top. So what I'm going to do is just take my screwdriver, gently move that up until it falls in place, and now that entire assembly is set. Now we can just screw it in. Alright, so now we can do the bail spring. Remember I said for the bail spring, the longer end of one of those posts will be facing down, which for me it looks like this side. And if they're both the same size, it doesn't really matter. Just get one inside the hole. And we're going to have this end piece sticking down. Essentially what's happening here is this is coming down and going through it like that when the spring is engaged. I don't normally put a lot of grease on these things, so I'm going to leave it the way it is. Set that up just like that. Stick this in there. And all we're going to do is drop this in, looking just like that. Mind you that this is sticking up and out of the rotor at this point, and that's fine. We're going to add some grease here, some around here, some inside the hole, just out of habit. Kind of the same for the other side, and with some inside that channel as well. Now we're going to cover it up. Before you cover it up, make sure that that is still set in place, which this one is. Drop it down over it. And like I said, both these screws are the same size, so no need to worry about that. Alright, so when we get this kind of worked down, we're going to take this spring, push it down into the channel right there. Now I'm going to take my finger and block that from coming up because it's still loose on this side. Finish snugging the stuff down here. And now all we have left to do is simply take that bail arm. That little hole on the top there will be going over the top part of that post. We're going to drop it straight down on it like that. Straight down, looking just like that. Very slight movement of the bail arm to get it to set in place, and this one is already set. Now we can screw it in. Alright, there's that. Now we're going to take this side, put it on there. Did I put the grease in the wrong spot? I did. Put it on there and then screw this side in as well. I'm going to snug these down a little bit. I don't want to do too much because it's kind of a plasticky kind of piece. Then I'm going to snug this down. That should suffice. Double check it to make sure it works, and it does. And let's try the flip out. Flip works nicely. Now the last step we're going to take on this is we're going to add some grease inside that hole right there. And then we're going to also add some on top of that counterweight that's on the bottom right there. And that's it. Oh, one thing, you want to make sure that the trip arm or the trip lever is coming out like it should be when you put everything back together, which obviously, as you can see, this one is. Alright, now let's go ahead and work on the top part where the pinion gear is and the anti-reverse clutch is. We're going to do those 3 screws on the outside. They should all be the same size. Oh yeah. Ooh, that is nice and nasty. Alright, so let's pull this end up. Well, let's get the washer off first. There's a washer that's on top there. Well, at least we can see why the why the anti-reverse clutch is not working. I'm just trying to get these pieces off so you can see them kind of as they lay. Now we're going to pull this up like that. And I'm going to try to keep this in a position where you can see what's happening with these things. I can't pull this out. I'm trying to get that to lift up, but it's not working. So let's go ahead and just kind of work it up a little piece at a time. And then we have one piece, which is the sleeve. We can pick that up if it comes off. And if it doesn't, we'll leave it there. We have two screws that are on the bottom there we need to remove. That was pretty weak. Let's see if this one's the same. Yeah, that's good. And once we remove those two screws, we can pull that pinion stack up. And so up it comes, just like that. I'll set this to the side and then pull the rest of this apart so you can see it. Maybe this is stuck on there. Yeah, it feels like it probably is. Yep. Let's see if we can pop it off like this. All right, I'm going to pop this stack off here and then show you the rest of this. And then I'm going to show you how to reassemble one of these things to get that to look like that. All right, so a couple of things. The bearing is bad, so we're going to replace that. And to reassemble this or to put this together, we're going to kind of just follow what this looks like here. So we have this, if you look on the side, we have it looking kind of like that. So we're going to lay this out looking like that. Then we have this piece with the notched end. And this is a sub, so it looks a little bit different. We'll be facing up to sit on this receiver like this. Alright, somewhere around there. We'll find it. Like that. And that's kind of how it'll look. So the trick here is to get these cylinders inside of here, and you want to be careful. There's some little prongs inside there. They're not fraying, they need to be there, so don't get rid of them. Leave them in there. For this, we're going to add some grease to it. So I'll show you one and then I'll just kind of do the rest. The reason we're adding a little bit of grease there is because that will help keep these in place. Kind of like that. No, it doesn't really fall out. I'm just going to go around and do the rest, do this for the other parts as well, or the other sections. And I don't want to put too much grease, but I want to get some grease so it can kind of keep it in place. Okay, now that's set. I'm going to stick this inside here now. We're going to have to find those channels where this fits inside of it, so we kind of do a little bit of rotation to get it drop in place like that. And now we can take our inner race, drop that in, and then take this piece and we can drop that over it like that. We're not going to do that yet. We're going to slip this to the side, and when we get to reinstalling the pinion, we'll put this stuff on. Alright, so that's pretty much it for that. You can also, after doing that, you can add some oil to it to thin out that grease a little bit. I'm going to kind of leave it the way it is because there wasn't too much grease on there to begin with. Okay, so for the remainder of the reel, we're going to undo this boot screw first, or this rub guard. Pull that down like that. You'll expose all 5 screws that are there, and hopefully it comes off with this. And I'm going to keep these separate just to make sure that these aren't different sizes. I know when I do the reels, how I look at the screws or how I see them situated in my head. And basically what I'm looking for is this side housing looking like that. So I have top all the way around. And this is the only one that looks like a different size. The head is definitely smaller, so just make a note of that. Now we can just pull this up. If we don't have any more screws, which I don't think we do. We're hoping for nothing being stuck. That's the hope. Alright. We have another bearing there that might be bad. So we'll take that off as well. Alright, so now we're going to do this this screw right here to remove that stack or that shaft out of there. I'll set these aside because I know where they go. That screw to relieve the shaft. Pull that out. Leave it right there so you can see it. Take this, drop that over there like that. Now I can pull this out if we're lucky. We are not lucky, so let's go ahead and remove this first. And let's go ahead and pull this crosswind gear out so we don't damage it by pulling this main gear out. I think there's a couple pieces here you need to pay attention to. First, let's get it off. And you have a bushing inside here. It may or may not come out. If it doesn't, that's not that big of a deal. But it's in there. I'll get that in a sec. Just kind of want to get this main gear out so I can see what the bearings are doing. Because they don't feel good at first, but they might be okay. Alright, that's it. I'm not going to take the lever apart. All I'm going to do at this point is work on putting these bearings off, checking them to make sure they're fine or not fine, and cleaning this reel up. So I'll see you guys in a bit. Okay, so here's what I've gone ahead and done so far. I've greased inside here where that bearing will sit, around there, that post where the oscillation gear will sit, some inside there under that plate, and up there as well where the pinion stack will be going. I've also greased inside here on this side where that bearing goes, or in the cover for the main gear. You'll see that I've greased this and this. You'll notice there's quite a bit of grease on these. For the older gears, I kind of like to put a little extra grease on these things just to make sure all the surface area on this is covered. The only thing I'm going to put on right now would be the bearing and the oscillation gear. Now this bushing inside here, you'll notice there's a recess, or there's an opening on one side and a flat side on the other. That flat side will be on this side, and it'll be kind of flush or recessed when you put it in. Let me add a little bit more grease to that. Drop that over that post, and then we're going to secure it. Alright, now the next thing we're going to do would be the pinion stack, because I think that's probably going to be the easier route to take, and then putting in the main gear afterwards. So let me go ahead and grease this pinion stack, or the pinion gear rather. And if you're watching in my videos, you know I like to grease the entire thing, especially those threads on top. just like that. Now we're going to take our bearing, which would be this one. I've already oiled this, just like I've oiled all the other ones. Drop that on there, just like that. And this is probably the trickiest part, if you had to think of a part that's tricky. So we're going to take this, drop it inside there, so it's sitting looking like that. Now I'm going to go ahead and secure it with these 2 screws that came off. And if it sticks, that's good. If it doesn't, we'll add some grease to it. But it's stuck, so we're good. Lock that down. And now we're going to take this anti-reverse clutch, and this is probably going to be the trickiest part, right? Because there's a few moving pieces in here. So I'm going to take it, bring it over here, take this top piece, and the way it's going to look is just like this. I'll show it to you in a sec when I put it over there. I'm going to take this, key it into those little channels that are on the top. When I find them, stick it down in there real good. Now we're going to take this and kind of hold it sideways, and this is keyed, so we're going to have to kind of hold onto that pinion gear so it doesn't move around, and rotate this until it drops on, just like that. Now I'm going to rotate this over to where all these things are lined up, and I'm going to just gently push this down, making sure the inner race goes down with it to where we get to here, putting that end piece over that post, dropping it in place. Make sure it's lined up, which this looks like it is. So we're already good to go. Not too difficult in this trial. Doesn't mean it's not difficult, just this one wasn't. Now we can always double check it to make sure it works by engaging it and then making sure that it does stop the reel from going backwards, which this one is doing. I'm going to open it up so we can go both ways. Now I'm going to take my plate and our screws and get that screwed down. Notice there's an extra hole here, and there's a tab on this side that's going to go over, so it looks something like this when you put it on. And I'm just going to secure it with these 3 screws. Snug is good, you don't have to over tighten them. Good. Now I'm going to take our main gear, our block, and put that on, and then we'll stick the main gear on afterwards. The way we're going to put this on is angling this side first under that plate, and then fitting that bar in between 2 little channels that are on this side. All the while making sure that this block is far enough down to go over that post that's on the oscillation gear. Just like that. Now I'm going to rotate this up a little bit because it's a little bit low, but I want to keep it low towards the bottom. Now we can take our main gear or our drive gear, stick that on there, kind of work that down, put on our washer that came off of the main gear. Now I'm going to just stick this bearing on there so I don't forget it, and I'm going to stick that shaft down through here so we can get this reel put back together. I'm going to add some grease right around there where it's going to go inside the block. You can do a little bit here if you want to. Just kind of work that in with your fingers a little bit. Drop it straight down. That flat side will be facing up. Go ahead and secure it with the screw. That looks good so far. Now we can go ahead and cover this up. Make sure it sits properly, which it looks like it is. and that's always a plus. I'm gonna feel it. Yep, feels good, which is always good. I'm gonna do a couple screws to secure it just to get a better feel for this, the marriage of the gears. So I'll do this top left one and that bottom smaller right one. Right there. Let's see how that feels. Yep, still feels good, which is good. Okay, so now we can put the rotor on. Let's get our 2 washers on there first. We can lock this down. The bevel end will be facing up or be at the top. Now I don't know what I said to you guys when I took this off, but it's backwards to tighten it, so I think I turned it to the right, not lefty-loosey. So I apologize for that. Yeah. Yeah, it's left to tighten it and right to loosen it. So that's my fault there. Let's see if that's too tight. Nope. Lock that down. Take our click gear, stick that on there. That's keyed also, so you want to make sure that it's going down the right way. Good news is it only goes one way, so you can't really mess it up. That's on. Stick the sounds good. Add a little bit of grease right here. Take our handle, stick that through. And we already have some transference of grease on there, so we're not going to put anything else. This is keyed, so you have to find the channel or the slot for it to go through. And then just start winding it in. That collar inside there will, in general, naturally find the slot, but if it doesn't, you can always take it out by itself, stick it inside there, and then just stick this knob through it. Alright, so let's check it out and see how it feels. We'll put everything else on in a sec. I know we're missing a couple screws here plus the rub guard. Nice, feels good. How about this bail flip? Feels nice. The drag, I felt a little bit already and it felt pretty good. I'm ready to test out the line roller out, so we know that works. And the anti-reverse disengage, that works as well. So now everything works the way it should. Alright guys, if you found the video useful, please hit that thumbs up button. If you appreciate a content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks again for watching.